Hi, Hi everybody. What we would like to do today is talk about copyright. Copyright is an issue that's going to be very important to you as an educator because we want you to be a thoughtful and ethical educator as you move forward in your career. So what I'm going to do is cover three different questions today, and we'll do them rather quickly to kind of give you some background, but I think you'll have some idea of the answers to these questions by the time you finish this whole package of the online lecture and materials that I've provided. So first, why should you be concerned about copyright? We're going to talk about fair use, and we're going to then define the four criteria of fair use. First, I want you to think about this concept of what do you think you know about copyright? When you think about how materials are used in the classroom, whether they're print materials, digital materials, audio materials, can you just use them? Because we're educators, we can use anything that we want to, and there's no implications as a result. So kind of keep that in mind as, kind of think, what is your position on copyright now? What do you know about copyright now? Okay? This is my fear, is that kids today, and even adults as well, it is so easy to grab things digitally. The technologies that we have made it very, very simple to go grab text, put it in something that we've created, go grab images. So, is that okay? And just because I can do it on the internet, I can do it with other materials too. It's a little bit, probably flippant, but I think kids today have lost sight of what's right and what's wrong in how to use materials that have been developed and produced by other people. And so that's what we want to do, is kind of set the context for that. This is, I did not assign this article. It's a very short article on the internet. If you just Google the title of this article, you could access it. So please feel free to do that. But I've taken an excerpt from it, and I just think it's really interesting how they have really laid the groundwork and have said that because teachers have not been educated in terms of fair use and what that means, they think it actually hinders learning and sets a really bad example for students. I do agree to some extent. I try to be passionate about this topic, especially in 201, because we are working with digital materials. We are creating projects and things, and I want you to have, the grounding that what is right and what is probably wrong. And so these researchers, what they found was teachers having these dispositions. They can see no evil because they just refuse to educate themselves about copyright. It's just, I'm going to do what it can't be wrong if I don't know it's wrong, okay? Some close the door. They just close the door to their office, their classroom, and they just do what they want to do because they think they're in this box of the classroom walls and nobody will find out. That's not always that's not always true. Things do happen. The third group attempts to hyper comply with the law. They kind of perceive what they think the law is and think, I'm following it to some degree. Okay, so what we're going to try to do is not blur the lines too much. We're going to try to make it as black and white as possible, but realize that it is gray. It is kind of gray at times, but we're going to do the best and try to model it ourselves so that you will do the same for your students once you get in your classrooms. Why is it important for you in terms of copyright? Number one, you guys, it is a federal law, okay? It is legislation. We have to follow copyright. And that the legality of it is if someone would push us in terms of some of the things that we do in our classrooms, we could have consequences. And those consequences are usually a fine, sometimes a hefty fine in terms of what we've done and how we've done it and what we've used. So do realize it is a federal law and we have to be mindful of it. The other thing, and this is kind of my position with it, is I just believe it's an ethical necessity. I would like to think that we're preparing ethical, as I said, thoughtful teachers at ISU, and I want you to leave us with kind of this ethical responsibility to use digital technologies very, very carefully and appropriately with students and be those good models for them. And it's, you know, I just feel like it's the right thing to do. Now, we all have probably broken copyright at some point in time, and I have, okay. 30 years ago, everything looked a little bit different in classrooms and, you know, what you were able to do, and it was just, you did have an attitude that, oh my gosh, you know, we have very little money, I want to give the best thing that I can to my students, I'll just use things, you know, and it's okay because it's an educational use, it's for students, and you just do it. Well, I've changed my stance with that over the years, and I really do feel that we can do a better job of tightening up copyright and how teachers think about copyright. Early lessons on copyright. I'm going to kind of encourage you to really get this from the article that you've read. Hopefully you read the article before you watch this, and so there's a good description of really what happened in the Supreme Court in terms of copyright, and it really came to light when we had tape decks in our homes, video copiers and so forth, and that's a really interesting case, and I want you to think about where would we be today if one Supreme Court justice had changed his or her vote at that time, with the vote 5-4 in favor of being able to tape videos at home. That changed the light in terms of what we were given and what we were able to do with digital technologies, especially at home and in schools. The one thing to remember, Congress can change copyright rules at any time, okay? So they do so, and they do frequently, and so it's hard to kind of keep up, but what we're going to try to do is at least have you situated in where we are today, okay? Excuse me. The one thing that I want to kind of leave you in this part of the presentation is that copyright law is a respect for intellectual property. All of us are going to deal with technology, but what we have to do is we have to understand that there are legal and illegal uses of intellectual property. And I think what we want to do for our districts that we work for is we want to make sure that we aren't put in the middle of a lawsuit. And more importantly, I think it goes back to providing ethical models for students to emulate. Okay? So that quote, "Good intentions can result in clouded judgment," is is very, very true. But what we're going to do is we're going to try to prepare you so that you are moving forward and in an ethical manner and using digital resources responsibly. Okay, so now the next part, as I set the context of this verse, why is it important for you? Okay, the next part of the lecture is I will talk to you about what is fair use and what are the 4 criteria of fair use. So go ahead and access the next video.